Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick and this is MSFS Flight Plans. Well, you can see I did it. I had to go get the TBM 850. It's just too awesome. I saw enough reviews, saw it flying around, checked out the detailing of it, checked out the price, which is a little bit high for planes, but I think it's worth every penny of it, and today we're going to fly it. If this is your first time here, what we usually do is try to find the coolest spots in the world, the best looking, the neatest, most interesting places in the world to fly over. I learn a little bit about what's going on the ground before the flight, so I can give you your own personal guided tour. But because this plane is pretty fast and likes to fly at higher altitudes, I had to find something that we could fly over that would look interesting enough just with the landscape. You know, we're not going to be able to spot too many fine details with this, but would be conducive to flying this plane because I just had to find another reason to fly it. And it is an incredible plane. So we're up in Alaska today, and we're going to take a pretty short flight, but we're going to do something a little different just to keep it interesting. Let's go ahead and hop in, and I'll tell you what that is. Look at this. I just have to stop and admire this. I know you've probably seen the reviews. It's just as good as everyone says it is. But to mix it up just a little bit, we're not going to fly with a standard GPS. We're going to do a full-on IFR radio nav flight. There's one VOR station between this spot and where we're going to, which is about 80 miles away. And so we're going to try to IFR fly it. I have taken it via GPS on autopilot once just to make sure I could get this plane on both the runways, and that was fine. So I know what to look for, but I'm not going to cheat in any way. We're going to I've reduced a little nav map on the side to see if we can do it purely IFR. So let's see how it goes. The startup for this can be very complicated if you want to go through all the steps. And if any of you guys are wondering if you've been around the channel for a while, yes, sometimes I like to do the full-blown step-by-step startup of the planes. And I'll even confess, sometimes I like doing the walk-around checklist. But we'll just get this startup as quick as we can, just so we can get up in the air and get going with this. So first we have to get that battery on. And let's make sure these dials are all in the right spot. Okay, get that there. Here, give it just a little bit of throttle. This will only take a moment. Starter on. All right, let's start turning everything else on in here. That needs to be on. Go to auto. Fuel selector on. The great thing about this plane, you can just kind of look through all these and see what lights are still on. And when you spot them, that's what you need to tweak. Get the bleed on auto. Let's go ahead and turn the air conditioning on. I had the live weather on, but it's like minute to minute around here. It's insane how much it changes, and it was super foggy. Earlier, about an hour and a half ago when I did the test flight, it was completely clear, but it was so foggy I couldn't even see the runway last time I did it. Pretty crazy. All right, what else do we need on our radios? Autopilot, even though we're not going to do it, I just need to turn everything on. We'll switch this stuff on up here. And we should be good. What else is still on? All right, we'll turn all that stuff off in just a minute. Just set that to auto. All right, go ahead and get the engine going. This plane just flies so unbelievably well, and we're going to hand fly it the whole way. We will not use any autopilot, obviously. We'll be using our radio navs, but it's smooth, it's easy, it's unbelievably cool. All right, what else we got here? Starter off. All right, all we have left is the parking brake. Okay, let's turn our master cautions off, and let me go ahead and dial in. And if you're wanting to do this also via radio navigation, I'm going to, in the video description, just tell you the frequencies and all of the coordinates for where you need to be going, and there aren't many steps in it, so it'll be pretty easy. If you want to try to replicate this, we will only get at max, hopefully around 10,000 feet, so I'm not going to adjust the cabin pressure. Everything else I think is good to go. Let's get our radio set. We're going to be on 116.70, so let me set that up. 116. I've got an external piece of hardware for that. That's why I'm not fiddling with it on the dashboard there. All right. So we're good. We should be able to catch that VOR as soon as we get up in the air. So let's do this. Go ahead and give it full condition. Full RPM. Parking brake off. And one notch your flaps. And away we go. I just can't stop marveling at just the embroidery on the dash, even just so cool. And if you check out some of the more in-depth reviews, just looking in the back, around, up in the gearboxes, everything's just unbelievably well made. Perfect. Totally perfect. So I did put it on the scattered cloud setting because it looks kind of cool with the time of day we're going to be flying at, and it's scattered enough that we'll be able to see down through some of the clouds. And I'll tell you all about where we are and where we're going once we get up in the air. This is Valdez, Alaska. I'll at least tell you that much. So this is the only airport out here. And we're flying down by Cordova. So we'll fly out over the water, kind of hug the coastline a little bit, and then we'll be coming in after that. Let's check the barrel, make sure that's good. All right, we're good. All right. And if you have headphones to listen to this video, if you don't already have this playing, I'm not going to adjust the volume down. It'll be kind of loud, but I want that intentionally. It won't be so loud you can't hear me. But the internal sounds on this are just amazing, so immersive. It's really, really cool. If you have a VR set flying this, it would just be astounding. All right. Hit the brakes a little bit. I like this airport because of these huge mountains right next to it. There's not a lot to see as far as structures on the ground next to it, and there's no add-ons, payware or freeware. There is an add-on available for the place we're going to. It was about 11 bucks. It's payware, and since I'm probably not going to be going to it more often than this flight, I decided not to get it. And the reviews for it were kind of mixed anyway. They said some of the stuff wasn't right. But you can see around here, it looks pretty good anyway. All right, you guys ready to do this? All right, do I have my lights on? Yep. Okay, everything's good to go. All right, let's do this thing. I'm going to go ahead and pull the RPMs back just a little bit so we don't go right into the red zone. Oh man, that sound. Unbelievable. It's not too terribly different than the other TBM plane as far as how it feels flying it, but just internally with the dash and all the knobs and dials and everything, I think it's definitely a notch above. And you can see this runway is a little bit rolling. All right, let's get up. All right, so once we get going, I'll adjust our radial heading so we can catch that VOR. And if you look to the left, you'll see some very nice scenery for the little town down there. So there's some of Valdez there, and you can see across the waterway there in just a second. I think it's probably like an oil depot, because I do a lot of oil tanker stuff out here, I think. And then down to the right that we won't really be able to see is where the big part of the town is. There's a little port and stuff down there. All right, let's take the gears up. We can start with that and get the flaps up. I'm going to turn my lighting up just a little bit in here. And I set the time of day to about 5 o'clock. And you know, up here this time of year, the sun never gets too high in the sky, but as you can tell, that looks just really, really cool. All right, so we need to catch this radial at 143 going out to it, so let's adjust to that. And I'm going to fly down this channel first, and then we'll catch the radial and head all the way to the VOR station. Then we'll head inland a little bit, head another bearing, and then we'll be coming into the airport. So there's going to be a little bit of VFR flying, but I've got the mileage that we need to get away from the VOR, so we should have no problem finding it. 143 is where we need to be at. Keep going, keep going. There we go. Just a beautiful area out here. So I do have a little bit of info just to help bide some time. Let's take a look at that area over there. Look at a little smokestack pumping away. And that actually looks pretty doggone good. I did buy an Alaska mesh pack from Orbix that supposedly covers the whole state of Alaska, and if I'm being honest, I couldn't tell a huge difference before and after with it. But I do have that installed as well right now. All right, let's kick back a little bit. We don't need to climb over 2,000. We're going to try to get, once I get up to about 8,000, I'm going to start trying to taper off the climb. So the only populated areas we're going to fly over is Valdez, which we just left from, and there'll be a couple others I'll mention along the way. And although the name probably should have given it away, I was a bit surprised to learn that the Spanish were the first Europeans to make it up here. And the town was named after the Spanish Navy Minister Antonio Valdez y Fernandez Bazan, after they sailed through here in 1790. And I think some Dutch were out here even before that. Those guys were quite the explorers. Alright, let's pull the throttles back just a little bit, stay under that yellow zone there. See if we can stay under 2,000 feet a minute. And other than a minimal amount of trading with the local natives, not much happened out here until the Klondike Gold Rush kicked off in the 1890s. And even then, the only reason anything happened was because some hucksters convinced the starry-eyed miners that the town was a great jumping-off point for an inland route up to the Klondike mining fields, I guess. Well, it turns out the trail that they were advertising was actually twice as long as they said it was, killing off quite a few miners who wanted to give it a go. Not of exposure, believe it or not, but of scurvy. So yeah, it was that long. Oh boy, I need to get some defrosters on. Alright, we can do that. Let's see, we don't need our ice light on. De-ice that. We'll do the windshields. Alright, that should take care of that. Then we'll be above the clouds here in just a minute and have a nice clear view of everything going on. And I need to start coming this way some. We don't want to hit any mountains. You can see right down there along the water line, there are some spots that look a little bit jagged, but the mountains themselves look really good. And it might even be one of those deals where if we were a little closer to the water, it wouldn't look so jagged. But that is beautiful, isn't it? Look at that. So a few years after the miners figured out that this was not a good spot to head up to the Klondike, the locals started campaigning to get a railway built from Valdez to the extremely profitable Kennecott copper mine about 100 miles inland. But a good old-fashioned shootout between the competing railway companies ended that idea. And then they had a massive earthquake out here on Good Friday in 1964, creating a landslide that caused a portion of the town of Valdez to collapse into the water, killing 32 people. And just when you thought there might not be anything positive reported about Valdez, there's not. Most of you are probably old enough to remember the huge oil spill they had out here in 1989. And if it weren't for that, I probably would have never heard of this place, but you may recall the name of the ship that hit the reef out here was the Exxon Valdez. And it was right out here in this sound, Prince William Sound, right outside of Valdez. Alright, so let's start coming over to our radial. Alright, so we got 35 nautical miles to hit the VOR station, and we'll just head right towards it. And I'm going to put my, once we get up to about 8,000 feet, I'm going to put the autopilot on just to maintain our heading. It won't be tracking anything, and I might actually adjust the heading and just use that to steer. But I don't want to have to keep clicking between the vertical speed and our heading, so I'm going to try to get up to 8,000 feet. Yeah, that looks a little bit blurry down there in that bowl. But this is just such incredible landscape up here. Alright, at 8,000 we should be well above these clouds. Won't have to worry about that. Just incredible. See that jagged stuff down there by the shore? Despite the mess that Valdez spill, Exxon Valdez spill caused, it did create a little miniature economic boom, I read, for the town, as the people that came out here to clean it up were out here for several years. And Valdez, and all these towns actually, we've flown over a lot of dying or shrinking towns lately. These have all been growing over the past 10 years. People trying to get away from the cities, I guess. Alright, so let's start, let's get that on for that. We'll make our heading, let's see, what do we want to make it? We'll go out this way just a little bit. We'll keep on this bearing until we get a little bit closer to our line coming over. And we'll start dialing it in closer. Alright, heading on. Get our vertical speed down. Take that to flat. Just leave that there, and then we'll fly via heading. Okay, we're all set up for a nice radio nav flight here. Looks good. I thought about going out over Anchorage, but that really deserves a nice low and slow flight. And that little field down there is by a town called Tadalek, population 90, and that place's only claim to fame is that it was the closest population center to the Valdez wreck. Alright, let's start coming over here. We're getting close to our line. And if you just saw our most recent flight up to, well, we were flying through Yosemite Valley, and we were in the Bronco, that new freeware plane. One of our members notified me that that little vent that I thought was an error in the modeling of the plane, up on the top of the window, it looks like a glass vent in a glass window. He said that's actually a real vent of some kind. So kudos to the dev for getting that right. I can't even imagine how freaking loud that thing would be. Going at 200 knots if you open that, if it's a vent. If any of you know what that is, let me know. But that was a cool plane, especially since it was free. That made it all the more cool. Alright, I've got some fun facts for Alaska for you. That's a lot of alliteration, isn't it? While we're out here in Alaska, it is home to 17 of the 20 highest peaks in the United States, including Denali, which is the highest of them all at 20,320 feet. And though it is the largest of all U.S. states at over 660,000 square miles, It has a smaller population than the smallest state, that being Rhode Island at just over 1,500 square miles. And Rhode Island's population is about 300,000 more than Alaska. Can you believe that? And Alaska is also home to 34,000 miles of coastline, which is more coastline than all of the other 49 U.S. states combined. Lots of coast up here. And if you're looking for a female companion, you might choose a different state. Alaska has the lowest ratio of women to men in the entire U.S. But it's not that far off. It's like 52% men over women. So if you're desperate enough to fight the odds, you might be able to make it. But you better like tough women that might have hairy armpits and legs too. They build them tough out here, I'd be willing to bet. And during World War II, Alaska became the only location to see warfare on U.S. soil during the Battle of Attu in May of 1943, as the Japanese invaded the Aleutian Islands, which is that big chain that stretches out to the west. It's somewhere out there. Alright, we're getting pretty close to our radial, so I'm just going to keep kind of finessing our heading there so we get right up on it. So we'll fly out here to our radial. Once we get close to it, we need to go away from it at 57 degrees. So as we approach, I'll go ahead and shift it over to 57. And then we have to fly 23 nautical miles away from it. And then our runway heading will be roughly 98 degrees. So we'll kind of ballpark that. But once we get out there, we'll be able to VFR fly it in because we got to cut through a little pass and some mountains. All right, that's pretty close. What do you guys think? I think we'll probably hit it if we get right on it. So I'm going to go ahead and set it right to 143 for our heading. And that'll get us there, or at least close enough. Whew. Boy, I didn't realize how hard it would be to track notes, fly this plane, and try to radio navigate at the same time. But I'm enjoying it. That is beautiful, isn't it? Look at all that stuff. What an amazing flight. Amazing scenery. The clouds are kind of a nice touch. I would have made it just totally clear skies, but I thought it looked cooler with the clouds. And finally, one last little tidbit about Alaska that all of us can appreciate. With more than 10,000 pilots out here, above 1% of the state has certifications of one type or another. And that figure is 3.6 times the average in the United States. And it also has 400% more airports per square mile than any other U.S. state. And as you'd probably guess, yep, the vast majority of them are bush strips. These will both be paved, by the way. Obviously the one we left from is paved. Alright, 12 miles. I'm thinking maybe at 3 miles out, I'll go ahead and shift over to 57 degrees. And that should get us going just fine. So the place that we're landing at is called Merle K. Mudhole, and that's in parentheses, so maybe that was like the guy's nickname. Merle K. Mudhole Smith Airport, Papa Alpha Charlie Victor. And their runway is just under 7,500 feet in length, so if you want to fly this plane out here, you should have no problems getting it down. I didn't. I had plenty of runway when I came in before. But there is a big mountain towards the end of it, so you'll have to kind of cut down over the top of it, as you'll see once we get out there. And if you want to come in from the other direction, there was no ILS options on the one we left from, but from the other direction you can come in via ILS if you just want to go full-on radio all the way. But ILS is easy, and easy isn't as fun, so we're going to do it the hard way. Alright, I'm going to adjust our heading just a little bit because we need to get back towards our line. Now we probably don't. I mean, we're close enough, but just to keep ourselves right and tight here. And if you want to visit Cordova, so Cordova is right along the water, and I don't know how much of it we'll be able to spot as we're coming in because we'll literally fly right over the top of it. We'll probably be able to catch a little bit of the port, maybe. But if you want to come out there, you're going to have to fly or take a very, very cold ferry ride because there's no roads connecting the place to any other major highways. And it's not a big place. Their population was around 2,600 as of 2020, which is also growing. So they've been doing all right. I bet it's also beautiful, just like everything out here. And remember that mining railroad they were trying to build in Valdez before they had the shootout? Well, it wound up down here in Cordova instead. And they wound up moving more than 200 million tons of copper ore through that port from 1911 to 1938. Alright, so let's start adjusting this, and then we'll adjust our heading once we get over it. So we need to get to 57. once we hit, I don't know, what, 2.5 miles out, then I'll start adjusting our heading. And then we're going to need to start coming down too, so I'm going to have to bounce back and forth between, well, once we're on our heading, we'll be okay. I'll go back to the vertical speed movement. And Cordova was also known as the razor clam capital of the world until the 1950s, when its own celebrity did it in, and overharvesting wiped out the clam population. But even after that, fishing remained the major economic driver out here, which was just devastated by the Valdez incident, really putting a lot of shellacking on the local economy. Alright, so we're getting to 57, but luckily for them, Exxon has pretty deep pockets, and they finally wound up winning a legal battle and got a $450 million settlement, which I'm guessing went to the city and some of the people out here. And with only 2,600 total people, that's a nice little purse for everybody. Oh, I think we may have timed that just right. Look at that. Yep. Alright, start coming away now. Start coming away now. Yes, perfect. Wow. That was good. Really good. Okay, so let's start coming down. Let's start slowing down and coming down. Get back to my vertical speed adjustment. Click, click, click. So we'll come down to about 3,000 feet. Let's pull the throttles back. Alright, so we need to go 23 miles from the VOR. We're already about 4 out. So we're tracking all right. Man, this is fun. I hope you guys are enjoying this as much as me. Probably not, since you're not actually flying it with me, but I hope you'll try it yourself. And just look at this plane. So cool. You can get all the standard GPS stacks and all that stuff if you want to. All you have to do is, if you didn't see me do it before, just flip these little switches down here. And again, starting it up, unless you like to go through the whole checklist, the main thing you need to do is just turn the starter on up there. That was the thing that I couldn't realize I had to do. And other than, let's turn our terrain warning off so that thing doesn't start chirping at us. Alright, we need to slow down even more. We're not going to get low enough fast enough. But this is cool. I'll be doing a... If you don't hear from me for 2 weeks, it's because I'm flying this plane all around. Man. I asked last video for recommendations for other flight sim channels on YouTube. I'd mentioned the 4 that I always go to, which was John Beckett. And by the way, John Beckett and AvAngel, as usual, were the first to market with reviews and tutorials for this plane. AvAngel's is a really quick tutorial. John's is a condensed tutorial, so if you just need to figure out how to get up and get going. And they do have an in-sim checklist, I think, too, if you wanted to use that. But my other two, other than AvAngel and John, were, let's see, Overkill Simulations and 737 NG Driver. And some of our members also said, don't forget about Into the Blue Simulations. And I remembered, yep, he's also... I have a, you know, my personal YouTube channel has even more bookmarks than this one. Or subscriptions, that is, and they're definitely on my list. ITB is. Alright. We only got about 13 more miles to go, and then we have to take our turn, and then we'll just be visual flying from there. So I need to have a little bit of time to flatten out so I can get down to gear speed. I'm actually going to come down a little bit faster. We'll take it down at 1,600 feet a minute. In Anchorage, I was initially going to fly from there, but it wound up being like an hour and 20-minute flight, and I was going to land at Valdez. And there's tons of add-ons for there. All the airports, well, most of them, the big airports all have freeware add-ons. And the default scenery around the town just looks fantastic. So at some point, we'll definitely go do a low and slow tour of that place. It was really cool. Alright. Those clouds are kind of in the way, but once we get underneath them, I will be able to tell where we're at. As we get closer to 23 miles from that VOR, we'll be in good shape. Those clouds look really good. I'm getting some issues with... We don't fly with clouds on very often, so I don't think to point it out, but the up-close clouds look good, but every now and then, and I'm sure you guys have experienced it too, I mean, these look just perfect here, but sometimes the ones further away will get kind of this pixelated, blocky-looking appearance. Let's see if I can see any that look like that. Of course, I'm not seeing you now, but those just look perfect. I kind of wish we were flying into the sun. That would be even cooler. But we're not. Nope, of course, I think about it, and all these just look really good. Alright, we're getting down. I think right when we come under those clouds, we'll be good to take our southerly turn to come into the airport. And all I need to do is watch out for the mountains. We did get some more recommendations for cool spots to check out after I sent out the smoke signals for that on the last flight too. So now I've got about 7 places that I need to check out. And I did go out over Luxembourg. As I mentioned, I've been talking about doing the Meuse River. And Luxembourg looks cool, and I think we've been just so spoiled from some of the places we've been flying over, especially if they have add-ons available. And there may even be a payware add-on available for Luxembourg, but or Borg, if that's how you say it. But it had that same kind of look on the buildings as Vancouver did. You saw it last flight. They just didn't look quite right. It looked good. I mean, it was detailed, and there was a lot of stuff to see, but it wasn't as perfect as we're used to on the places we see on this channel. Well, all these clouds are looking perfect, so I'm not going to complain about it or even point it out anymore. I'm just going to enjoy it and be grateful. Alright, so we'll flatten out here, then we'll get down to gear speed. And then we'll start looking for our turn in. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust our heading now to 98 degrees. Because we're getting real close. Let me get through these clouds first. I might be able to see where we need to be anyhow. I need to slow down some more too. Alright, 98 degrees. Let's take our turn. Unfortunately, without my little GPS thing, I can't see any elevation, so if we get surprised by a big mountain slamming into our windshield, well, I guess we had it coming. Okay. Autopilot off. We need to come right around that little notch in the mountains right there. That's where we're headed. We should be able to see the lights of the runway once we get through there. May have turned a little bit too early, but we'll be fine, I think. That looks beautiful. Just amazing. All of Alaska is so cool. If we had gone from Anchorage over to the place that I left from, there's all kinds of glaciers and stuff to see, and I think that was helped by that mesh pack from Orbix. And I'm not even really sure what mesh means, but it was like $5 or something, so I figured I'd get it. I was doing a lot of flying up in Alaska about a year ago. I think those clouds are obscuring our runway a little bit. I'm going to slow down some more, take the props all the way down to the green zone so we can get the gears out. Oh, there's the runway lights. See them up there? Just flashing in that little corner of the window. Alright, but let's get around this mountain. Bleed off some speed. Come on, baby, bleed it off. This is a slippery rascal. But boy, once you get the flaps down, you really got to ride the throttle. Because I think the approach speed, I didn't look at the manual, but I think it's probably around 100 knots. And it's hard to kind of stick on it once you get there. Alright, come on. I'm trying to get down to at least 160. I don't know what the gear speed is either. Well, if they rip off, we'll know we were going too fast. Alright, here we go. Oh, and they got a little road there. That's a nice little... If you couldn't see the lights for some reason, just look for that road. That's pretty close to it. Alright, so now we need some more throttle. Let's get our prop speed back up. And we're getting enough drag with those gears that I don't think I need to get the flaps out yet, because we're probably, I don't know, what do you guys think? 8 miles, 10 miles out? I think we'll have plenty of time to slow down. I just don't want to rip the gears off. And I had my ship traffic turned on earlier also. And in the, I guess it's called the port of Valdez back there, there were even some tankers scooting around. So if you have all that stuff, and your processor can handle it, turn those on too. And we do have PAPI lights on this as well, which are helpful. Okay, we cleared the mountains, and we got a clear shot to the runway here. And I think this runway elevation is about 45 feet or something like that, so that you can just use your regular altimeter to figure out where you are. You don't need your radar altimeter, per se. Alright, let me nose up a little bit, slow down some more, and we'll get our flaps out. I'm guessing flap speed's probably not higher than 140, right? Alright, 1 notch down. 2, and now we got to start working the throttle to make sure we maintain enough airspeed. Boy, you can't miss that strip, can you? Just a big black spot in the landscape. Man, this landscape. Look at those trees. So nice. I also thought about taking a flight out over the Aleutian chain, but those are also so spread out. When you look at it on the map, it's like, oh, it's not that far, and then you see how far it is, and it's like thousands of miles from the tip of the chain back to the mainland of Alaska. Alright, the pappies say we're high, so we'll come down some more. Keep playing with the throttle and the RPMs. Do we have full flaps? Yep, we do. Okay, so we're good. So far, so good. Alright, a little quick. Pull the throttle back some. And I will pull over a little nav map when we're done, just to kind of give you some pointers for IFR flying if you want to do it. But I don't have a flight plan drawn out on it because we didn't load one up. But I'll do a very, very quick tutorial of how to set that up if you're not familiar with it. And if you are, we'll look at the stuff that we were looking at first, and then I'll do that at the end, so you can just skip the rest of the video if you know how to do that. We're still a bit high, aren't we? One of the complaints with the add-on pack, the Payware add-on pack, is that they made the trees at the end of the runway too high. That was my radar altimeter. Made me nervous, thought I was stalling. And they said there were some floating lights. They said the structures looked fantastic, and they look okay, they look good enough. Look at that coastline down there and that water. That looks superb. But the reviewers for the add-on, the Payware one, if you're thinking about getting it, said it probably wasn't worth it. Probably should have been freeware for the things that weren't so great about it. Alright, here we come. Watch that airspeed if I nose up just a little bit. It starts to dip right underneath 100. Come on, throttle. That's the thing about these turboprops. There's a little bit of that lag when you juice it. We hardly have any crosswind. It should be pretty smooth. Yeah, if you got some cans to throw on, some headphones, listen to this flight with the volume cranked up. Sounds amazing. Just so smooth, just floats. Wonderful. Alright, cut the throttle. Come on down, baby. There we go. Come on. I'd like to use that taxiway if I can. Yeah, that's alright. They got those huge things on the side. We can just pull over there. Alright, flaps up. I mean, I really feel like we're here. You can just feel like the cold in the air. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Let's not hit that. Alright. And we'll just pull over here and park. Wow. Look at that landscape. Incredible. So nice. And of course, you know, you open the doors and the windows, the sounds change. Everything you could... I haven't found a single thing about this plane that I would think, yeah, I wish that was different. It's just... easily one of the best planes I own, and if you guys have gotten it already, I'm sure you'll agree. And I had a few bonus points saved up at Just Flight, so I got to save a few bucks. That was great. Okay, let's shut this off. And you know what? I haven't shut this off before, but I bet you can just do this. There we go. Parking brake on. Our flaps are up. Okay. Let's get a little nav map over here, and we'll see where we went. And I'll show you how to set the flight up if you'd like. So here's Valdez. And as you saw, you know what? They do have an ILS strip in there. So I guess if you're coming in that way, they do have ILS. But you know what? I noticed on here, it is not lined up with the runway. So if you're actually flying it, I don't know if it would get you in there or not. Because as you can see, that is not lined up correctly. But since we're not in China, I'm guessing that may be an artifact of a little nav map and it may be lined up correctly. But you certainly wouldn't be coming in from this way because there's huge mountains there. So I guess if you're landing, that's the way you'd be coming in anyhow. There's those little petroleum facilities there. And you can see they got some tankers tied up down there. And here's where the town of Valdez is right over here. We couldn't see that because we flew right over the top of it. But I bet that looks pretty neat too if you had a plane that you could see down the sides better. And of course, if you're coming in for approach, that looks incredible. But if you're wanting to go out to Anchorage, look at these glaciers you can fly over. And it's a pretty good hike, but the route that I took the last time I did it, and I was in the... what plane was I in? I was in some kind of vintage plane, so it took like 2.5 hours to get out there. I was going like 70 knots, but I came out over this way, flew over these glaciers. There's some huge peaks out here that look really cool. Flew down this valley here. And came around this way. It's a beautiful trip down here. And then just came into old Ted Stevens this way. So that's a great flight if you ever want to take it. And the approach with all those mountains landing down here at Valdez is also fantastic. All right, so here's that VOR station. That's the one that we were shooting for. And then here's the ILS coming into the other side of that. So if you're wanting to try to draw this out, and if you're not familiar how to do it, so if you already know how to do this, it's been great having you. Had a blast as always. Can't wait to see you in the skies. Okay, for everyone else, here's how you would set that up. And this, if you've watched our most recent tutorial on how to use a little nav map, this won't surprise you. So when I'm setting these airports up, I always, for the departure, just pick the airport, never pick a departure runway, or it messes up. Although in this case, it wouldn't matter. It can mess up your autopilot if you're going to fly on autopilot, but because I'm a creature of habit, I'm just going to not do that. And then for this one, I will select the runway. So select runway, and it would be number 9. And there's our straight line. So if you're wanting to come out here to the VOR station, first, kind of map out how you want to get out here. Come on. So we kind of went that way, and then pull it this way, roughly. And this, oh, by the way, the guys that checked out won't know this, but that little town also has a pretty good-sized asphalt runway if for some reason you wanted to land down there. And I think they may have even had a freeware add-on for that, and they got a water strip there too. All right, so this is the key if you're going to get the VOR flight in, and you're going to use the radio nav. Just drop that right on the center of that thing, and then you can see we kind of went over here like this. And then here's how you do it. Once you set up your radio, you will get the channel for this VOR is 116.7. And then here is the radial you'll need to fly in at, 145. So right when you take off, you can just go ahead and drop 145 in. And it doesn't matter whether you're lined up with it, because you'll know when you get on it, even if you flew straight out here, it'll line up to that straight line when you get on the... well, hopefully you guys know what I'm talking about. If not, I may do a tutorial for radio nav flying. But once you hit that straight line, make sure you set your compass also for your heading of 147 when you get down there. And that one also did have a distance measuring thing on it, so you can tell when you're getting close. Then when you get right over it, we would go at 55 degrees away from this. And I think we had it set for 57, so this line's not perfect for what we drew it for before. And then at 22 miles, I had it set for 23 miles. You'll need to take a turn of 96 degrees, cut through this little pass in the mountains. That's kind of your visual indication. Look for that little notch in the mountains, and you can come on in here in that airport. If you're completely unfamiliar with what I'm talking about, let me know in the comments, and I can do a little bit more. Again, I don't want this channel to become a tutorial channel because there's so much like that out there, but I do want you guys to be able to replicate these flights just the way we took them if you like them. So let me know if what I'm saying doesn't make any sense to you, and I'll do a little bit bigger tutorial on that. Again, I'm not a master of radio navigation either, but it's fun to fly that way if you like, and you can fly stuff like the 152, which has absolutely no options but radio navigation, the Cessna, and some other planes that just have the basic radio equipment in them. So that's it, and I'll tell you guys now who stuck around, I had an absolute blast, and of course, I can't wait to see you guys again in the skies, and yes, absolutely, get the TBM 850. It's awesome. See ya.